We live in a world where the strength of men has been hijacked by their own distractions. Most don't even realize it, but they are emotionally, spiritually, and energetically empty. They haven't fallen. They've been drained little by little through clicks and promises of cheap pleasure. But there is ancient wisdom hidden beneath layers of shame, taboo, and forgetfulness, a silent, ancient practice that transforms ordinary men into leaders, masters, and legends. A practice that reconnects a man to his true power. Simon, retention is not about celibacy. It's about energetic code. The universe, yes, the very fabric of reality begins to respond differently when you stop giving into easy pleasure and start transmuting that force. And what happens is simply mind-blowing. Have you noticed how most men today walk the streets like ghosts? Dull eyes, slouched shoulders, gazes lost somewhere, between their phones and a fantasy that never comes true. They're not living, they're just reacting. Reacting to the algorithm, to porn, to notifications, to comparisons. And the cruelest part is, they don't even realize they've been disconnected from the source of their masculine power. In the past, man was attuned to the rhythms of the world. He hunted, created, guided, protected. There was fire in his eyes and purpose in his steps. Today, there is only empty dopamine and a trail of frustration. The signal has been cut, the mission forgotten. The soul traded for crumbs of instant gratification. Porn, sold as sexual freedom, became the altar where men sacrificed their vital energy. Each click, each just one more time, is a small death. And the most perverse part, the system calls it self-care. Addiction is rebranded as freedom. Weakness is sold as self-expression. But the universe is not fooled. There is an invisible law, as ancient as the stars, that begins to operate when a man breaks this cycle. A law that doesn't respond to desire, but to vibration. And when you stop wasting your essence, not just physically, but energetically, something changes. You begin to recover the signal. That signal doesn't come with fireworks. It shows up in silence, in your posture, in the gaze that sharpens, in the clarity that returns. The universe, like a cosmic mirror, begins to reflect what you become. And if you become a man in retention, it responds. But don't be mistaken. Retention is not containment. It's not just abstaining, it's redirection. It's taking the energy that used to slip through your fingers and returning it to your core, your muscles, your voice, your mind, your mission. The man who practices this begins to break free from autopilot. He stops being led and starts to lead. And that's when the universe begins to conspire. What once felt like bad luck turns into synchronicity. What once felt like rejection becomes respect. What once was doubt becomes direction. But only for those who cross that invisible line. The line between the man who is controlled and the man who takes control. Do you want to know why so many are still lost? Because no one taught them that true power is not found in seeking more pleasure, but in knowing when to say no, in holding the fire until it turns into light. There's something that modern science is just beginning to grasp, but that the ancient masters knew thousands of years ago. Everything is vibration. Every thought you have, every cell in your body, every beat of your heart, everything is vibrating. And this isn't poetry, it's physics. According to string theory, the foundation of matter is not made of solid particles, but of frequencies, microscopic vibrations that resonate through the fabric of the universe. That's why, when you retain, when you stop wasting your vital force, you change your frequency. You're not just holding back fluid. You're tuning your inner instrument, aligning yourself with the cosmic order. And what happens when something resonates with the universe? The universe responds not with words, but with synchronicities, with opportunities, with an orchestra of signs that seem like coincidences, but they're not. Have you noticed that on days when you're more centered, stronger, more connected, everything seems to flow more easily? People look at you differently. Doors open, decisions become clearer. That's not chance, that's frequency. That's alignment. Semen retention is not about chastity. It's about vibrational science. It's about reclaiming control over the frequency you emit. When you give in to every impulse, you shatter that frequency. You become chaotic, unstable, inconsistent. And the universe responds to that with silence, because inner chaos cannot create external order. But when you retain, and not just in the body, but also in your mind and emotions. You become cohesive. Your presence becomes dense. Your electromagnetic field expands. The energy that once leaked without purpose now spins within you like a turbine. You become a beacon, a magnet, a force field. That's why animals respect you, why children approach you, why women feel you without knowing why. It's not about appearance, it's about presence, because your vibration is back in alignment. And the truth is, the entire world responds to your vibration, not your words. And the most striking part? This is just the beginning, because as your frequency stabilizes, the universe begins to test your new identity. It sends temptations disguised as opportunities, crises that look like defeats, but they're portals. It wants to know, are you truly ready? Or will you fall back into the old programming? And here lies the secret that 99% of men ignore. Retention is not passivity, it's alchemy. The energy you hold must be directed into training, into prayer, into writing, into work, into your mission. Because if it's not transformed, it implodes. If it isn't channeled, it consumes you from within. That's why the universe only rewards those who are in motion, those who not only retain, but channel. Because it's through that channel that the divine flow descends, that inspiration comes, luck appears, intuition guides, and everything around you begins to change. Not by magic, but by spiritual physics. The universe doesn't react to what you want. It responds to what you vibrate. Most men who discover semen retention believe the secret lies only in abstaining, stopping porn, stopping masturbation, stopping ejaculation. And yes, that's the beginning, but it's only the first step. What comes after is the true domain of the masters, transmutation. You must understand something fundamental. This energy does not want to stay still. It is creative by nature. It is literally the energy that could generate a new life. If you merely retain it but don't give it direction, it builds up and explodes, not physically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Frustration grows, anger intensifies, the mind begins to sabotage. The energy demands a channel, and if you don't give it one, it will create one, even if that means through self-destruction. Retention only becomes power when it becomes movement. When the energy you've held back begins to be redirected, to create, to serve, to build, to study, to train, to pray, to lead, you become the alchemist, the one who takes something raw and turns it into gold. And that gold is you, your body in transformation, your mind clearer, your faith stronger, your vibration higher, your destiny closer. It's no coincidence that the great men of history, monks, warriors, prophets, inventors, all practiced some form of sexual energy sublimation. They knew that the same force that seduces can also save, that the same desire that distracts can also guide, that the fire that burns can also forge. But the path is not easy, because the world we live in is built to make you explode. Everything around you, from social media to marketing, from music to movies, screams at you to surrender, to give in, to release. Because a man who explodes is a weak man, and weak men are easy to control. But the man who learns to transmute, that man is dangerous. He goes to the gym not to have a good-looking body, but to channel fire. He prays not just to ask, but to elevate his vibration. He studies not for status, but because his focus has returned. He builds, writes, leads because his energy is centered, alive and concentrated. This man is a threat to the matrix, because he no longer needs distractions. He doesn't obey consumption campaigns. He doesn't beg for attention. He is centered. He is silent. He is a force, and the universe responds to that, not just with blessings, but with more power. Because the universe tests before it trusts. It wants to see if you know how to hold before it gives. And when you prove through action and discipline that you can transmute, then the miracles begin to appear. But if you stop at step one, simply abstaining, sooner or later you will fall. Because energy without direction becomes pressure, and pressure without purpose becomes collapse. That's why, brother, retain, yes, but transmute. Be the alchemist of your own soul. Take the fire and build, because only then will the universe know he is ready. Have you ever wondered why everything around you seems designed to distract, seduce, and drain you? It's not a coincidence. There's a war happening, and not with tanks or guns. It's an invisible war, waged in your mind, your dopamine, your masculine essence. And the battlefield is your daily life, your phone, your timeline, your lonely nights, every notification, every video, every hyperexposed woman on the screen, every click. All of it is part of an intelligent system designed to drain your energy before you even realize it, because when you're emptied, you become predictable. And when you're predictable, you're manipulable. The system needs you to stay weak. It needs you to doubt yourself. It needs you to trade your inner fire for instant relief. And how does it do that? By selling pleasure as freedom, by selling addiction as a lifestyle, by turning porn into entertainment, masturbation into a joke, self-control into oppression. That's not culture, it's emotional domination. And the more you consume, the more you feel like you're in control, but you're not. You're trapped. You're repeating the script. You're leaking your power. And meanwhile, the system profits from your weakness, your anxiety, your exhaustion, your emptiness. But the man who retains overflows with energy. He breaks the script. He writes his own code. And that is dangerous, because he no longer needs to buy self-esteem. He no longer needs to prove anything. He begins to generate his own light. And light, brother, light disturbs. The world mocks the man who disciplines himself. They call him extreme, outdated, repressed. But it's just fear in disguise, because deep down, everyone senses there's something different about him. He walks with more firmness, speaks with more clarity, chooses with more intention. He doesn't seek approval. He represents something that's been forgotten, order. And the universe recognizes order, because order is the language of the divine. That's why the tests intensify. Temptations return with more force. Ex-girlfriends reappear. Old desires resurface. Unexpected DMs, strange dreams, irrational impulses. All of it comes as the system's last attempt to pull you back. But that's your chance, because if you resist, if you stay firm, something shifts forever. The universe starts treating you differently. It understands this man won't sell himself for pleasure. This man is ready to lead, to sustain, to build. And the moment the system realizes that you're no longer a client of pleasure, but a channel of creation, it loses its power over you. Because now you set the rhythm. You choose where your energy goes. You decide what enters your inner temple. And at that point, you stop being a victim. You become a force. Have you noticed that when you're at your best, focused, disciplined, centered, things just start to work out? An unexpected contact, an improbable opportunity, an invitation that arrives at just the right time. Most people call that luck. But luck, brother, is the name the world gives to the universe's response. When you finally enter alignment, yes, the universe rewards the aligned man, not because he asked, but because he became. And that is the oldest and most ignored secret of existence. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. When you hold your energy, overflow with purpose, and walk in integrity, you emit a signal. It's not visible, but it's palpable. Your electromagnetic field expands. Your body vibrates on another frequency. Your soul tunes into the cosmic order. And when that happens, miracles stop being the exception. They become the standard. But be warned, those miracles won't come while you're still testing. The universe does not respond to the man who merely tries. It responds to the man who decides, who declares in silence, "I will no longer betray myself," because true retention is not physical, it's spiritual. It is when you close the door to instant pleasure and open the portal to your mission. At that stage, the answers change. Silence begins to teach you. Prayers begin to be felt. Intuition sharpens. You speak less and perceive more. Time seems to slow down. You stop chasing and start attracting, not by magic, but by vibrational coherence. You become a channel, a transmitter, a man who, simply by being present, changes the atmosphere, because you are no longer a beggar of the universe. You are a broadcaster of divine order. And then the signs come, the right woman appears. The healing you were seeking reveals itself. The mentor finds you. The business flows. The body responds. The mind clears. The spirit ignites. You feel in sync with something far greater, because you truly are. When the universe finds a man who holds himself, it sends resources so that he can hold others. But first it tests. It observes in silence. It waits, because the power you're asking for can only be given to those who won't use it to feed the ego, but to manifest purpose. And that, brother, is the real miracle. Not money falling from the sky, but man becoming one with the sky. And from that point on, matter obeys, because the spirit has taken command. So understand, retention is the beginning. But the real reward is the return of your mission, the clarity of your path, the reconnection with what drives you, the alliance with your essence, and ultimately, the silent recognition that you never needed to ask, only to awaken. Most men dream of power, respect, freedom. They want the crown but reject the weight. They want to be treated like kings, but live as slaves to their own impulses. Because being a king is not about having, it's about sustaining. And to sustain requires discipline, silence, presence, a type of strength that doesn't shout but is felt. The man who walks the path of retention begins to awaken this real energy, the energy of the king. Not a fantasized, arrogant, or tyrannical king, but the inner king, the one who governs his own territory, his body, his thoughts, his habits, his decisions. And this kind of governance is not easy, because it requires sacrifice, hard choices, and renunciation. You begin to notice that the pleasures that once ruled you now embarrass you, that the desires that once guided you now seem childish, that the noise outside no longer attracts you because you're too busy listening to the call within. And in that silence, something sacred begins to emerge. Your gaze shifts, your posture commands, your words carry weight, and most impressively, you begin to do everything with less urgency, because the king does not rush. He commands time, and time respects the one who does not hurry. But with power comes solitude. You begin to see that not everyone will follow you in your ascent. Some friends will disappear, some relationships will collapse, some people will call you cold, arrogant, distant, but it's not about them. It's about you realizing that not everyone is ready for the silence you now inhabit. And that silence is sacred. It is there that you hear the voice the entire world tries to drown out. The voice of your mission. At this stage, you no longer beg for signs. You become the sign. Your presence carries direction. Your silence unsettles because it is real, and people can feel it. They sense that there is no longer doubt, no longer lack of control. There is an ancient force restored, but do not be deceived. The discipline that brought you this far will still be tested. The universe keeps watching because the higher you rise, the subtler the temptations. No longer porn or cheap distractions, but praise, invitations, disguised opportunities, ego traps, pride snares. That is where the true king reveals himself. Not in conquest, but in renunciation. Not in external domination, but in internal control. Because the true king is not the one who takes everything for himself, but the one who sustains everything with wisdom. And the universe rewards this not with likes, followers, or applause, but with peace. A peace no one understands. A power that doesn't need to be shown. A certainty that needs no justification. That is the path of the crown, and yes, it is heavy, but it also lifts. There comes a moment when words no longer matter. The goals, the desires, even the idea of reward. All of it dissolves because something greater begins to reveal itself. You realize you were never seeking a miracle, you were becoming one. This is the final portal, the point where retention is no longer an effort, but an identity. No longer a practice, but a state. You're no longer trying to be someone. You're simply being fully, deeply, completely. And the most remarkable thing is that in this stage, the visible effects become almost irrelevant. Clearer skin, a stronger gaze, abundant energy, a steady voice, apparent luck. Yes, all of that is still there. But you no longer depend on it, because now you feel something different, wholeness. You are whole, centered, aligned with something you can't even name, but you can feel. You begin to see the world with new eyes. You spot the lies in the eyes of those who fake, sense the pain behind those who hide, feel the fear in those who attack. And instead of judging, you understand, because now you see the spiritual war behind every face. And your weapon is no longer shouting, arguing, or confrontation. Your weapon is silence, your energy, your integrity. You've become what the world constantly tries to suppress, an awakened man. And that disturbs, because your mere presence exposes everything false. The emptiness others try to mask with noise, the fears they hide behind laughter, the addictions they call freedom. You no longer need to prove anything, nor convince anyone, because now your life is the argument, your discipline is the testimony, your vibration is the truth. But this doesn't make you superior. It makes you responsible. Because now you carry a light that can guide or blind, a power that can heal or control, a fire that can illuminate or destroy. And the universe is watching you constantly to see what you'll do with it. If you keep it only for yourself, the light dims. But if you serve, teach, inspire, build, then the miracle multiplies, because the universe rewards those who share what they've received. And that's when everything changes. People begin to seek you out, not for fame, but because they sense that you carry something rare. Opportunities find you. Answers arrive before the questions. Life bends to your step, and you realize in silence it wasn't luck, it wasn't chance. It was the price of loyalty to the invisible. The boy who fell so many times is gone. The slave to impulses is buried. And in his place a man was born, the man the universe always intended to honor, not because he was the strongest, but because he was the most faithful. That is the miracle, and it doesn't happen to those who wait. It happens to those who become. If this message touched something inside you, don't let it die here. Subscribe to the channel O Buscador and activate the bell. Here we don't speak to your distraction, we speak to your soul. Comment below, I choose to retain, I choose to awaken, and share this video with someone who needs to remember they were born for more than momentary pleasure. You are not alone. You are awakening, and we are your reflection.